Okay, good day to you all. So in this lecture, I will be talking about ceramics. So this is the lecture that we are supposed to have during the week when the storm came. No? But unfortunately, UP Baguio had suspended all synchronous and asynchronous activities during those days. No? So I have decided to record it so that we would not run out of time within the semester. So I am going first to do a screen sharing. Okay, I hope you can see my slides. So this would be again on archaeological ceramics. So basically these are the fragments, no, of pottery or whole pieces of pottery that you would find in an archaeological site. So as you will see, this would appear in in several forms. Okay, so why are we studying ceramics and archaeology? First of all, it is one of the most common form of archaeological material that we can find in an archaeological site, especially sites that are that date after the old Stone Age. Because before the new Stone Age, we do not have pottery. We assume that we do not have pottery because pottery only appeared during the new Stone Age or the Neolithic. So this would be associated with the events of the Neolithic, like agriculture, then sedentary residence or living, and the increase in population. So there are many advantages that were experienced by people when pottery came, when pottery came into existence. So this would make possible the containing or the handling of liquids like water, or perhaps those that would be used for dining and other forms of consumption, like alcohol. Also for healthcare, like liquid pharmaceutical compounds, for example. Okay, so in addition to what I have mentioned, it also made possible more cooking methods, not just roasting. So basically, without pottery, we cannot do more than the basic things like roasting, and then perhaps baking. We can do that without well, seldom. Without pottery, can we do baking? But with its appearance, there would be boiling of food, steaming, also producing aqueous foodstuffs like porridge, lugaw. We can also ferment things. We can also, for example, make alcohol, distill alcoholic beverages. Ano pa? We can make some delicacies like bagoong, or patis, or alamang. Or for those of you who are familiar, I think all of you are, buro, for example, that delicacy which is famous in Central Luzon and Northern Luzon, siguro lahat kayo ay kumakain ng buro. However, in Southeast Asia, and in East Asia, some archaeologists would say that perhaps the appearance, the later appearance of pottery during the Stone Ages did not deter did not deter the 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 kinds of cooking method that can be done in our region, because there are some other materials that could be used like bamboo, no? As you well know, bamboo is a hollow material. If you cut a pole, bamboo pole, no? Pwede nyong gawing baso yon, or tasa, no, or lalagyan ng liquid, no? Actually, some of our ethnic groups have been doing that, no? And also in the past centuries, people, no, even if they are if they have been acculturated into a more modern way of living, they still continue to use bamboo as a storage vessel for fluids and liquid foodstuffs. Of course, in other parts of the world, no, where there is no bamboo, they can also make use of hides, no? Animal hide. So for example, this would be done by the pastoralists in Africa, in Central Asia, for storing dairy products like milk, like yogurt, or cheese, no? More fluid types of cheese. Okay, and also alcoholic products from milk. No? But then again, pottery is so useful that it made advances in food processing and storage. So with the appearance of pottery, we could do so many things, no, about our food, especially the preservation and the storage of food, and also the processing of these resources that we need in everyday life. So the oldest pottery in the Philippines would come from both ends, no? Northern and southern ends of the archipelago. We have a potsherd, no, from Tawi-Tawi, dating to 7,000 BP. No, when I say BP, it is before present. So 7,945 years before present, or BP, no? Give or take 190 years. And then we also have some materials coming from Cagayan, no? Cagayan Valley in Laurente Cave, that would date to almost the same, it is contemporaneous with that of Tawi-Tawi, no? 7,830 BP. So let's go now to the three major types of ceramics that we find in archaeological contexts. First of all, we have earthenware. So what are the three? Earthenware, the first, and then stoneware, and then porcelainware. The first to appear is earthenware. So an example of earthenware would be this vessel. So you are familiar with earthenware. What are the examples of earthenware? Yung paso na ginagamit nyo sa bahay, no? Ginagamit nyo na pantanim, or ng mami nyo, or ng lola nyo, or ng daddy nyo, no? Or lolo. Ito yung kadalasan gawa sa luwad or clay, no? It is earthenware. So this is an example of an earthenware pot, or a clay pot, no? Pero we would like to call it more specifically as earthenware in archaeology, para hindi nakakalito. Kasi we also the other types of vessels of ceramics are also made from clay, no? But this we distinguish by it's more simpler. It's simpler material, no? In the form of earthenware. Okay, so this pot came from India, no? I do not have a pot coming from the Philippines here. So earthenware. Okay, I will write. Okay, so earthenware, the one that I have shown to you just a while ago, and then stoneware. What is an example of stoneware? When you go to a Japanese or Korean restaurant, most of the time they would serve dishes in such kinds of vessels. So this is an example of stoneware. This is a Japanese type of stoneware made in Japan. Okay, it is used for, I think, for serving I think for serving wine, no? Alcoholic beverage. So you could see the difference, no? This is ito, no? Pag tinap ko, no? As to halimbawa yung earthenware, okay, medyo iba sila ng tunog. Okay, so this is a stoneware. And then the third type would be porcelain. This is porcelain. I think this is made from China, but it caters to the Peranakan, no? The Chinese Malay community in Malaysia and Singapore. Okay, so this is porcelain or porcelainware. When you dine in Chinese restaurants, not always, but most of the time they would be serving this, no, yung mga pagkain nila in porcelain dishes. Lalong-lalo na yung mga laureate, 'di ba? Hindi yung Chowking laureate, no, parang hindi sila nagse-serve sa porcelainware, no? Pero if you go to the other restaurants, halimbawa yung mga may pinaghahandaan pag may kasal, or merong binyag or birthday, no, lalong-lalo na ng mga Chinese Filipino community, no, they would be serving the dishes in porcelainware. Okay, so let's go first to earthenware. The earthenware vessel is non-vitrified. Pag sinabing non-vitrified, if you fire the entire substance, no, the material made into earthenware, kapag sinabing vitrified, it would be homogeneous. But for earthenware, many times, so it will not be vitrified, no? Or it would show evidence of being heterogeneous. But today, because of the advancement in technology in firing earthenware, no, you can see, no, ito binasag ko, no, na earthenware. You can see that the cross section is almost homogenized. Pero halimbawa, if you compare the cross section of stoneware and porcelainware, no, nawala naman ako ngayon, no, chances are you would you would never find some differences in the cross section, among the substance of the cross section of the pot. Okay, sometimes in those poorly fired earthenware, you would still see differences in color, no? Halimbawa, yung sa labas ay luto na, magandang pagkaluto, pero yung gitna hindi masyado. Okay, meron pang blackish areas doon, no, na hindi masyadong naluto ng mabuti. It is still carbonized. Okay, porosity. This is more porous than the stoneware and the porcelainware. So we put the porosity, for example, at 10 to 25%. I will show you the numbers of the other two later. So for firing, this would be baked or fired in a temperature lower than in stoneware and in porcelainware. So this would come at around less than 1,200 centigrade or Celsius. Earthenware could be glazed or unglazed. Pag sinabing glazed, yung may kinang, no? Glazing, glazed. Ito, no? Yung makinis na surface is an example of glaze. So this is not much glazed. Halimbawa, ang magandang example itong earthenware, no? This one, although smooth, pag nakikita nyo, no? Pero hindi siya glazed. Yung glazing, just imagine your may mga ibang cake, no? Lalong-lalo na yung mga birthday cake ngayon na nilalagyan nila ng parang salamin sa ibabaw, no? Coating na transparent na parang nasa salamin. So that would be your glaze, no? May mga donuts din na gano'n, no? With glazing. Kaya very smooth yung surface nila. So both stoneware usually, no, but not always, have glaze, and also lalong-lalo na porcelain, makinis, makinis at shiny. So the characteristic of a glazed vessel is there is shine or sheen. It is shiny. Okay. So earthenware is relatively made from coarse plastic and red clays, especially in the Philippines. Okay, going now to stoneware. Stoneware is more vitrified than earthenware. Actually, porcelain and stoneware is almost the same in the degree of vitrification of the materials that were made into these vessels. And the porosity is less. Ibig sabihin, the liquid that you would put, for example, water in the vessel would escape less. No? The chances of escaping or going through the material would be less compared to the earthenware. Okay, mababa ang porosity. And then firing, it would be higher, no? 1,200 to 1,350 degrees Celsius. Stoneware, as I've said, could be glazed or unglazed, no? And it is made from high plastic and low iron clays. The third type would be porcelain. So it is also vitrified, just like your stoneware. Porosity is also the same. It is less porous than earthenware, almost the same as stoneware. And the firing is almost the same, no? A high firing temperature. Bakit? Because porcelain and stoneware is often fired in an oven, no? In a closed situation, unlike earthenware, which can be fired in a closed situation, but for most of the time, open firing ang ginagawa. Ibig sabihin hindi enclosed. So you cannot really very much, no, control the temperature of the firing. So porcelainware in particular is glazed, no? Most of the time it is glazed, but there are some types of porcelain that you can see as unglazed, no? But most of them are glazed, especially those coming from archaeological sites, right? And it is made from kaolin clay. Kaolin clay is a special type of clay that is found in China. So there is a porcelain, no, or ceramic center in China, in the south, no? It is the place is called the place is called Tsingtachan. Okay, Tsingtachan. This is where most of the Chinese porcelains come from, no? So for almost I think more than 7 centuries, no? it has been operating as a porcelain center not only for China but also for a big part of the world. Hanggang ngayon meron pa rin, meron pa rin silang ginagawa doon. So I think most, if not all of our porcelain, since porcelain first appeared in the Philippines, so were made from that part of China, and then the Europeans came, during the Qing dynasty, the last dynastic period, of occupied China, and smuggled out the technology into Europe. So now they have been making this. They are also experts in porcelain making, especially in the Netherlands and also in the United Kingdom. So for example, if you've been to Europe, especially the Netherlands, and I think Belgium, you would see those little windmills, souvenir windmills and houses that are made of porcelain, blue and white porcelain, which are popular gift items. Okay, so this is the steps in the manufacture of earthenware. I will emphasize earthenware pottery. Nakalimutan ko ilagay niya. But this is earthenware pottery. So in particular, the method that we do in the Philippines. So we are going now into how pottery was made, because in analyzing pottery, it is also good to know how it was formed, so that we can piece out the details as we examine pottery. Okay, so first of all, the sourcing of clay. So kopyahin nyo na yan. Sourcing of clay usually in river banks, or in some other places where a good clay site is located, usually in river banks, in swampy areas. For example, where do you find pottery making centers in the Philippines? Madalas dun sa mga alluvial areas. When you say alluvial areas, those places which have been laid down by clays due to the erosion, erosion of water, so they transported silt from other parts, mountainous parts upstream, and then deposited it into the lower reaches of the river. So for example, in Bulacan, in Pampanga, yung mga estuaries natin, the estuary of big rivers. Okay, estuary, the place where the river begins to slow down because it would eventually meet the sea. These are the estuarine places. Bulacan, Pampanga, also Pangasinan, also in Ilocos we also have that, in Ilocos Sur most especially, and also in the Lawag area. So these are pottery making centers until now. Ano pa? In Cagayan actually we have a pottery center in Isabela, in northern Isabela, and also in southern Cagayan province. These are not close to the estuary of the Cagayan River, because the estuary of the Cagayan River is I don't know, maybe meron din gumagawa ng pottery doon, hindi ko alam, I'm not familiar with that. I'm more familiar with the centers found around Tuguegarao, in Igig, and also in Isabela, in Santo Tomas, Isabela, that is near Cabagan, across the river, across the Cagayan River from Cabagan. In Ilocos Norte, we have San Nicolas, no? The outskirts of Lawag City. In Vigan, I don't know. I think there are also, yes, there are also earthenware centers there, but Burnay is more popular than the other types of pottery. And this is in the Vigan area. In Cagayan, I think they are still making pottery in San Carlos City, yung area na yon. Also in Tarlac, meron din in Pampanga, in Santo Tomas, no, in the municipality of Santo Tomas. In Bulacan, there is a pottery center in Kalumpit, no, in one of the barangays of Kalumpit, no. So these are beside the big rivers, no. As you can see, the sources, no, of clay for pottery making would not be a problem if it is if the site, if the manufacturing site is close to a river where they could get good clays. In the Visayas, of course, there are also pottery centers there, no? And also in Mindanao. Okay, so once you source the clay, you mix the components into clay dough, and then you knead the dough. Okay, so knead, no, parang gumagawa ka ng tinapay, and then you create the form of a pot, no? After that, once you have created the form, you place designs. And after placing the designs, you put on the covering, no? Yung sheen, no, yung glaze. And then you also highlight it with color. You highlight the color, no, part most specifically. And after that, if you have gone through all these things, you could bake the pot, no, in order to finish the process. Okay. I think I haven't translated this into I haven't translated this into English, no, because this was once in Tagalog, no. My lecture was once in Tagalog. Anyway, sige. So creating the form of the pot, drawing, no? Drawing is shaping the opening and rim by punching with the fist. So okay, so you need, no, parang gumagawa ka ng tinapay, no. So imagine this as the clay that I am using to make a pot, an earthenware pot. And then I shape it. Usually, ang ginagawa nilang shape ay paganyan, no? Okay, paganyan, pahaba, or medyo ganyan, no? Medyo ovoid. And then I punch one side of it on top so that I could make a hole, no? The beginnings of the hole of the pot, no? The opening. Okay, so for example, ganyan, ano? So that is drawing. Okay, so i-stop ko muna yung screen share. Susulat ko na lang. So manufacture. First we have drawing. Drawing, okay? Punching with fist and then pinching. Pinching. Ano ang ginagawa sa pinching? I pinch parts of it so that it could assume the form of a vessel, no? Halimbawa yung rim, no? Yung rim halimbawa, ipipinch ko na ganyan. Okay, so imagine this to be a pot that is being formed, no? Hindi medyo malambot yung clay. Okay? Okay, so ganyan, no? Pinching. Okay, and then there is also the use, no? Ito traditionally, no? This is done in the Philippines. The so-called paddle and anvil. Paddle and anvil method, no? So, pag paddle and anvil, kunwari ito, no, meron akong paddle, no, or pamukpok. Kunwari ito pamukpok na ito yung paddle. And then I have an anvil. Kunwari ito, no? Imagine this screw cup to be an anvil, no? Sangkalan. Yung anvil doon pinapatong halimbawa yung gusto mong pukpukin. For example, if you want to modify the shape of a metal, for example, no? Nilalagay mo siya sa ibabaw ng anvil and then pupukpukin mo. Okay, so ganun yung ginawa din nilang term for pottery. So paddle and anvil. So for this method, our traditional pot makers would, no, use this. Halimbawa, lalagay nila sa loob, no? Sangkalan, and then pupukpukin nila. Okay? I don't know if for those of you who are near those pottery centers in Isabela, Cagayan, or Ilocos Norte, no? Maybe you can observe, no? Pero mag-ingat kayo sa COVID-19. Okay? Or I think you can view it in the YouTube videos, meron naman. So ganyan. Kasi ngayon medyo delikado pang lumabas. Okay, so sangkalan, lagay dun sa loob ng pot, kunwari, and then pukpok, no? So in the process, you would eventually form a, well, relatively even thickness, no, of the body of the pot. Okay? Ganyan, no? Paikot yan, no? Medyo matagal na pukpukan ito. No? So if you are a potter, kailangan matyaga ka. Okay? Okay, so that is your paddle and anvil. So the next method, a more modern one, is the use of a potter's wheel. Potter's wheel. Okay? Sa traditional method natin, ito, at ito. No? Pero kung minsan wala na ito, wala ng paddle and anvil, madalas ang ginagawa nila, maglalagay sila ng clay dun sa potter's wheel, salpok nila doon, paikutin nila yung wheel, at unti-unti nilang huhulmahin or bubuin yung ano niya, no? Yung hugis nung palayok. Okay? The potter's wheel could be manual, no? But I think today, no, most of them are electric, run by electricity already. Although yung mga iba minsan ano, no, they use some sort of a wheel in order to easily manipulate the pot when they would like to check on the parts of it, no. Halimbawa tatabasan nila yung isang part or unti-unting retokihin pa ganyan, no? So it would be more manageable if they would place it on a wheel that they could well, turn according to which way, no, to the direction they would like to drive the pot. Okay. Of course, yung mga sobra, there is what we call shaving. Shaving or shave, no? Inaahit. So for those, halimbawa, yung mga sobrang parts, no? They would trim that and that process would be called shaving. And so we have a pot, no? Ang pangit kasi ng pot na ito. Okay, so we have a pot, no? How do we put designs on the pot, no? So for example, there are pots with designs. So pero many of the pots have no designs. Yun nga lang yung mga iba, they would like to have designs, di ba? Minsan nakikita nyo siguro, no? There are flower pots, for example, with designs. So paano kaya nila inilalagay yun? For traditional pots, I think I have seen, for example, the ones in Kalinga, in Kalinga province, and because there are also some pottery centers there. No? Sometimes they place additional ornamentations in the pot. So how do they do this? They do this by, for example, carving. No? Number one is carving. So placing designs or putting designs. Diba? Pag sinabing carving, you carve, no? Uukit ka. No, for example, I would like to place some markings there. I can do that, or with a tool, no? May tool naman palagi most of the time, no? We assume. No? So, halimbawa gusto natin maglagay ng mga lines na ganyan, no? We can do that through carving, no? And then we trim, no? For those that have excess bits of clay, no? You can remove it in order to make the designs more appropriate, no? Okay, hindi ko alam kung nakikita nyo, it is too glaring, no? The light is okay, yan, no? Yun yung form na yan. Okay. Next, we can also do, so carve, no? Carve or carving, inuukit. Iba naman yon dun sa incising. Okay? Incising, incise. Lalagyan mo ng cut or in surgery we incise, no? Or susugatan. Lalagyan ng hiwa, no? We incise, incision. So imagine this to be the tool, no? That would be used for incision. Ganun yan. But we would like to make some lines, fine lines, for example. No? Okay. So yung carving, inuukit mo, no? Itong incising, nilalagyan mo ng linya or hinihiwa mo, no? You incise it. Number 3 is stamping. Stamp, tatak. So madaling, ano ba yan? Sira na yung pen. Okay. Tatak. So for example, this one, no, I would like to place the figure of a circle on the pot. So tatak. Okay, tatak. Okay, nakikita nyo ba? Ayan, no? So may bilog na. That is stamping. Stamping. We also have impressing. Impressing, no? Again, carving, and then incising, and then stamping, and then impressing, no? Parang stamping din ito, pero halimbawa, ano ba ang magandang halimbawa nito? This one. No? Yung pattern na yan, no? Para madaling magawa, you impress. Pwede rin naman you incise, no? Isa-isain mo yan. No? Pero pag gusto mong maging mabilis, kukuha ka ng isang tool, no? A marking tool that would have that pattern, and then you press it against the pot. Yun yung impressing, no? So that at once you would have this multitude of designs all at once. So that is impressing. So halimbawa ito, no, you would like to have those designs there. Tatak nyo lang na ganyan. Ayan, no? Hindi ko alam kung nakikita niya. Malabo. Okay? So ganun yung idea ng impressing. And then finally we have applique. Applique. Ano yung applique? So for example, we have a pot. Ito na lang, mas magandang example doon. Imagine this to be an earthenware, no? Kasi pwede rin namang gawin sa ibang types ng ceramics ang applique, no? The applique that we are talking about, that idea is how they form this, no? So this is a separate part that was formed and then attached to the main vessel. Okay? So yun yung applique. Ganon din halimbawa yung mga ibang covers, no? They make the cover, and then if they would like an extension of that, kung minsan hindi nila binubuo together with the cover, no? They form a separate they mold a separate piece of clay into a handle and then attach it to the cover. So that is your applique. Okay? Applique. And the next, placing color and sheen. So color. How do they place color? Through slip. Slip. Okay? Most of the time, this is also clay. Intensely colored clay. Halimbawa, intense red. No? Clay siya pero mas malabnaw, no? And then they dip a cloth, for example, into that malabnaw na clay na pulang-pula, and then they wipe it across the pot para ma-highlight yung reddish color halimbawa ng pot. Okay, so that is your slip. In order to put the sheen, no, katulad halimbawa nitong ceramics or some other earthenware, no, yung sheen, no, they put glaze. Okay, glaze. Yung glaze is also a type of it is a chemical, it is a compound, no, pero fluid din siya. And then they could also scatter it or wipe it across the surface of the pot. No? I think most of the time they would also submerge the pot into the glaze, no? So that the compound would spread all over the surface to make it look smooth. Okay, so that once you have done this, no? So umabot na kayo dun sa paglalagay ng kulay, paglalagay ng glaze, tapos na rin syempre yung design, ready na kayong mag-fire, no? or mag-bake ng inyong palayok. No? So what are the ways in which we do this? So we have at least two types, no? Two major types. We have open firing. Open firing. So they place the pot in heaps. Tapos tinatabunan nila ng kahoy, ng dayami, any form of fuel that is traditionally used in the community, and then sinisilaban nila. Okay, and then they wait for the fire to die, and then they little by little they check if the pot is already done. Okay, so, and of course na hindi 100% na ano yan, no? Na maganda yung resulta. Sometimes there would be mistakes along the way. Some of the pots, for example, would break under that temperature. No? Siguro kasi dahil hindi may mga pots na hindi maganda yung pagkakagawa. No? So they expect that, no? In open firing. Ano pa? Yes, so for most of the traditional communities in the Philippines, they do open firing. I have seen this in Mindoro among the Buhid Mangyans. No? Okay, among the Buhid Mangyans, at maraming mga may mga pots talaga na hindi successfully fired. So nabubutas sila. Wala silang doon. Nung nandun ako, walang potter's wheel sila na ginagamit. So they form the body of the pot through paddle and anvil. That is different from the ones being done in the major pottery centers in the Philippines. For example, if you go to Santo Tomas town in Pampanga, no, gumagamit sila ng ng potter's wheel. I think pati na rin sa Cagayan at saka sa Isabela. I don't know sa Ilocos Norte. I haven't been to the pottery center there. Okay. The other type of or the other method of firing would be closed or oven firing. So meron kang mga pugon, no? The same way as you are cooking or baking bread, oven firing. So you stuck the pots inside an oven sa loob ng pugon. Nandun na rin yung fuel, no? May fuel doon, pero depende kung ano yung ginagamit nilang fuel, pero most of the time meron pa rin may kahoy, ganyan, no? And then they close the oven and then adjust it to a certain temperature and then wait for the process to finish, no? Meron silang time na ibinibigay. So that is your oven firing. So in effect, you have greater control, no, over the conditions in oven firing than in open firing. No? So para hindi kayo malito. No? Oven, open. Or closed. Pwede nyo rin tawagin siguro na closed firing ito. Okay, so basically that is what I would like to say about pottery making. Ano pa ba? So the three types of pottery, I have introduced it to you. If there are any questions, no, about this lecture, you can ask me when we meet. Okay? So dito natatapos yung ating lecture. Palagi kayong mag-iingat and stay safe.